Hi, welcome to this little video that I'm doing, and I'm going to be discussing today a little bit about the mid-side microphone recording technique. The way that this technique works, it's really a bit different from all the other versions in that it's a combination of hardware and software techniques put together to give you a very realistic sound. So basically, what I did was I took two microphones and I recorded the results on my Zoom F4. But in terms of the hardware, it's a very interesting setup. What you do is you take two microphones, and they don't necessarily have to be the same microphones, which makes the mid-side microphone technique very unique in that I can use two totally dissimilar microphones. The only prerequisite is that one of them has a cardioid pattern, and the other one is a figure of 8 pattern. Now, in my case, I used the SE4400As, which have 4 different patterns built into them, so I have that option to mix and match, and therefore it works pretty good. So, what I did was I took them and I put them in the appropriate position. In this case, you have to literally put them at 90-degree angles. The forward one, in my case, the top one, is the cardioid microphone. It is the one that captures the direct accordion sound. The one on the bottom is placed in the figure of 8 pattern, and it captures the sound from the sides. So it makes it very interesting from the point of view that it will carry the sound of the ambience and a little bit of the reflections from within the room, as well as it's close enough to get a little bit of that accordion sound also. For me, in terms of experimentation, just sitting here thinking about it right now, what might be interesting is if we could somehow place this microphone a little bit further away in the back. However, then we might be introducing a little bit more of a phase differentiation issue, or a little bit more of a difference between the sound reaching the microphones evenly. So technically speaking, this is the proper way to set them up. The top cardioid facing towards the playing instrument, in my case the accordion, the bottom microphone just barely not touching it but set at a 90-degree angle to the top microphone using a pattern of 8, a polar pattern. So what does that give us? That gives us 2 tracks, the top microphone and the figure of 8 microphone, this one being the cardioid. What I've done here is I've taken one file. This is all one file, and I've cut it into 2, 3, 4 pieces. And the reason I did that is I wanted to do some experimentation. So for this part, I want you to hear only the front microphone. So for tracks 1, 2, and 3, these are the tracks here. Track 1, track 2, and track 3. I'm going to take track 2 and 3 and zero them out, so that when I set this section to playing, for this part here, you're going to only hear this section here. In the second section here, I'm going to slowly raise these up. But let me finish explaining the trick with the the microphone technique. There are a couple of other things that you need to do to make this successful. You notice I have 3 tracks everywhere. So where does that third track come from? The third track is actually a duplicate of track number 2. So I have track number 2 duplicated twice. And then I hard pan one to the left and one to the right. And in my case, for the third track, I'm inverting the phase. This is very important to do if you want to create that stereo image. And if I was to just remind you what it looked like, we have 2 microphones on top of each other. It doesn't really look like you could get much of a stereo image from here, but it's surprising at how good of an image it gives you. And what's really nice is, because of this design, and we can control the volume of these 2 tracks, I can control the width of the stereo image pretty much infinitely, from 0 to full on, and anywhere in between. Okay, so what does this sound like? Well, like I said, I'm going to bring this all the way to the start here. This portion here, I want you to hear just this one microphone. Number 2 and number 3, number 2 and number 3 are going to be zeroed out. Once we get to this section here, I left a little moment of silence here. When it gets from this part here to this part here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take tracks 2 and tracks 3 and slowly bring them up so you can hear the effect as it happens, okay? And that will be a very interesting effect to listen to. So what do I have with this part here? Well, once these are raised up to full, you'll notice that these 3 tracks are already tracks number 4, 5, and 6 are the same tracks, except in here I've got already number 4, 5, 6. I'm going to have all 3 of them already shooting out that lovely stereo image in its best maximum effect. So we'll have a little bit of a section to hear that. And what did I do here? Basically, I'm doing the exact same thing, except I have now added a little bit of reverb. I've added a little bit of EQ. And what else have I done? I've sort of balanced things out a little bit. So I've set this one at a -1 dB. I've set this one at a -2.7 dB. And I've set this one at a -2.7 dB. Okay, so basically what I've done is I've set the image offset a little bit so that there's a slight increase on the bass side, and I've lowered the overall volume by 2.7 dB because of the extra EQ that I'm doing. So that's kind of very cool, and shows you how little of EQ differences I'm making. Now it's only a couple of dB, no more than 2.5 dB roughly, of effect overall added to any given track. Okay? So with that said, how about if we just listen to the results? Again, first section, only the front microphone. Second section, I'm going to raise up the MS side technique happening, the mid side technique. You'll hear it there. I'll leave it in its full glory for this section here. And for this section, I'm going to add the reverb and slight EQ. So, are you ready for it? Okay, let's go. Okay, so that was the demonstration, and I basically let it recycle all the way to the beginning again, so you could hear this section here again, all in comparison to that part. So if you want to rehear the differences between a straight mono and the full effect after post-processing and using the MSI technique, you can go back in the video and hear the differences back and forth. Should be no problem. And as you can tell, the sound is very surprising and it's very easy to do. I've made it a little bit more complex here than I really did. In actuality, once you're starting to do this technique, you're not going to need to do more than 2 tracks. Duplicate this one, invert it, hard pan left, hard pan right, or whichever. It could be the other way. As long as one pan all the way to the left, one pan all the way to the right, don't have to do any more. Then you can basically play with your track volumes of the second and third and decide how much of a stereo effect you want, from the full width to a little bit less, and so on and so forth. That's been my experience with the MS miking technique. Hope you enjoyed it. Ciao for now.